So an intellectual pattern that you see on both the left and the right, and especially on the right does this too, is they identify themselves as something more than themselves. So, I'm not a man, I am such and such. I belong to this group, I belong to this group because of my skin color, because of I have a religion, because I live in this geographic region, etc., etc. And what's happened is that when they identify themselves as something else, well, a couple of things happen. First of all, that thing becomes something that's more important than, say, the country, for example. So, I identify myself as an individual. Okay, I'm a rational thinking individual, and I have a desire to protect the United States because it's a country that's based on essentially Aristotle's philosophy, the Constitution, individual rights, etc. But when people start to identify themselves as something more than that, as more than an individual, I'm Jewish, I'm Christian, I'm Muslim, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Hispanic, etc., then their loyalties become more personal. It becomes, sort of an us versus them. The country is not as important because now their group, their personal interests are more important, and they don't have the loyalty to a system that protects individual rights. So then they start bringing in things like some form of communism or some form of racism, and the country starts to break down. People start to vote in ways that take away from individuals minding their own business. So take, for example, the border crisis. There's a lot of people that think that, first of all, they don't have a loyalty to the country, so they don't care that the country is being destroyed because it's not their country, because they belong to some group and not that they want to protect individual rights. And they think things like, well, we need more diversity. We need cheap labor. They need to get back at these white people that, don't get me started on that nonsense. And you can see what's happening. They're pushing for policies that they have no right to do. They have no right to vote for or demand something that is taking away from other people. Essentially, it's initiating force. It's government is force, and as Benjamin Franklin said, democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting for what's for dinner. The other thing that happens when you identify yourself as more than an individual is essentially you have to adopt a form of irrationality. What you're saying is that my rational self is not adequate to get what I need to get, and therefore I am seeking some leverage as to identify myself as something else. Well, what happens is that you actually lose personal power, or you have less confidence in your ability to have your own personal power, so then you start seeking it from other ways. And this is where people really get tribal. See, that really pushes the whole tribalism even further. So if they can't, or they don't feel like they can get power within themselves and their own abilities, then they start to seek it through other people. They become powerful as a tribe, as a group, and then they use that to then further their own agenda. So take, for example, so-called business people. They're really politicians that are in business positions. But what they do is they say, okay, we're in a group. This is our company. This is our tribe. We're going to lobby the government, make these politicians on board on our team to lobby the regulations in such a way that raises the cost of entry for other automakers that might want to try to get into the market. So this way we don't have competition. And we don't care that we screw everybody else over because our cars are going to be really hard to work on. So that's even better for them because now you got the planned obsolescence and now you have to take it to the dealership to get anything fixed. They don't make a better product, they just make it worse for everybody else. So that's another example. Because again, they don't feel like they have the confidence to actually to be powerful within themselves. That is their own imagination, their own engineering skills. Of course, none of these people are engineers anymore, at the top of these companies. But anyway, so that's it. That's the start of the problem. And of course, the Marxists really enjoy this because then they can really push their ideas of trying to bring down the West because again, people belong to these groups. And then they use that. There's the whole class warfare in this way. So you see it all over the place, especially in the left. They're not Americans. They're black. They're Hispanic. They're Asian. They're some whatever gender. They're not individuals. They're not rational beings. They're not capable of their own power. So they get really angry and they try to disempower everybody else.